to your mic, please, if you don't mind. Thanks. There you go. Thank you. You're good.
Everybody had a chance to review those. Take a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Next up, claims approval. Looks like we have $85,865.07. Timbers Custom Signs, downtown parking study. A couple there for Reedy Financial as far as professional services. Jacobian Tombs for Madison Plaza. And then one to Duke Energy for Bicentennial Park. And then another one for Duke and Madison Plaza. Has everybody had a chance to review those?
Yes.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Old business monthly financial review, Reedy Financial.
Yeah, Gary, would you like to just address the current financial review real quick, our current state?
Yeah, Gary Smith, Reedy Financial Group. This is a report you receive every month, a financial update. We also have the April 15th reporting requirement on the agenda as well. Jumping to page number 5 on the monthly cash balance, projected ending cash balance in February, $1,819,000. And then for March, we have a projected ending fund balance of $1,733,808. One thing that I would like to point out and highlight on page 7, and again, this is kind of your meat and potatoes that you guys are used to seeing. On the 2023 projections, we actually show a miscellaneous line for 198, 178. That is actually understating cash. So your ending cash balance out of the 1.7 million is actually 1.933. That was a mistake. It's getting reversed out. It's just still reflected in the financials. So I just wanted to highlight that.
So we have not had those new asks then? Is that what you're saying?
Sorry.
We had no new asks?
So we had a transaction that hit the ledger that didn't ever hit the claims. So whenever we inquired as to why, we realized it was a mistake. So it hit the plan, but it's understating cash. So we're reversing that out right now.
I think what he's saying is it wasn't a redevelopment commission transaction, so it was a
Correct.
erroneous posting.
Got it.
Thank you. Any questions for Gary about that? Any more questions?
Next item, review for the statute.
Yep. You wanted to review, you want to review per the statute? Go ahead and review. Do that. Yeah. Cool. You want to introduce yourself to the commission? Thanks.
I am Cole Fosbrink with Reedy Financial Group. Just here to go over the annual reporting requirements here. If you would like to turn to page 3 for me, you will see an overview of all the annual reporting requirements that we will be going through throughout the year. You'll see us presenting those items down the list, today's being the one that's listed at the top. And you can go through that as you please to read through all the requirements. Flipping over to page 4, you will just see an overview of the commissioners and officers appointed, their term beginning and endings, and also local council and other overlapping units on there. Flipping to page 5, you guys will see an overview of all the allocation areas you're receiving revenues from. And on here, all these will have a lifetime, and to see any of the TIF expiration dates, you will come to this page to view those. Going over to page 6, on here is kind of a zoomed in month-to-month, monthly cash balance. You'll see all of your expenses for the year from a month-to-month basis, and highlighting the December ending balance for the year of $2.8 million on there. And then going over to page 7, this is a more zoomed out version of what we just saw on page 6, and shows you a yearly look at all of your revenues and expenses, beginning balance, ending balance, surplus. So feel free to look through any of those. And moving on to page 8, this will be your contracts with the RDC, with any vendors. It'll show what contracts are out there and the contract amount remaining, and you guys can look through those. And then if you go to page 9, this will show the debt overview. It'll show on the left side the 4 outstanding debts as of now, and next to that you'll see their maturity dates and the amount outstanding, and then the amounts to be paid next to that.
And Cole, on that, you've got Crystal Beach, project bond, that'll ultimately go away, I assume, off this, since we're not doing that, Gary, that listing?
Oh, okay, yeah. All of this information will be uploaded to the DLGF website as well. So this financial update will upload all the information to DLGF for the requirement. And then this document will also go to the city council for filing, but we can make that change.
Thanks.
And then flipping over to page 10, these pages 10 through 31, you will find all the parcel lists for each allocation area. If you need any information on parcels, you can see those pages. And if there's anything else you guys would like me to run back through or any questions, feel free.
When do we, what's the frequency that we need to look at the decrement process, I guess, for these parcels in our TIF district? I think we did it a couple of years ago, but what's the frequency, Gary, that you recommend so we can make sure we're maximizing, value of the TIF allocation areas?
I was actually thinking about that before we came in as I was reviewing the parcel list. I would say annually. It's easy to look at it annually. We do the TIF neutralization in August of each year. And when we do that, we know what kind of parcels have decrement for that ensuing year. So if there's negative parcels in that allocation area, right now, we know that because we're post-neutralization now. So going into certification for pay 2024, to your point, we can carve those areas out, reset the base, and then restore that loss that they were, I guess, dragging down the rest of the allocation area by.
Okay.
So I would say every year.
And you're saying every year, so we would do that like toward the end of the year?
You can do it at any point during the year. It's the same 4-step process as your establishing of an allocation area. You can elect to carve out decrement. A lot of communities just don't really look at it ever, and they really should because there's significant value to be had. But thumbing through this parcel list, which is page, I don't know what, 10 through 31.
20 pages, yeah.
Those
You've got some negatives in here.
Yeah, that far right parcel, incremental assessed value, anytime there's negative in there, it's a candidate for what we call decrement, or going in and pruning those negative parcels out that are negatively bringing down your positive values in your area. Yeah, great question.
Yeah, we did do that 2 years ago, yeah. The question is that it sounds like to me it's something we should probably do as a best practice every year.
Yeah, and what happens is obviously, you have your net assessments, which are here, and then any, new construction or abatements, we're capturing that value. But sometimes the property could be, raised, or, values could just be going down in general. It would actually cause that net to fall down below where it was when the allocation area was established, creating a negative value. And that negative value then gets distributed amongst all your positive values, and there's the opportunities to go in and reset that to where it's healthy and functioning as it should again. That's not something obviously the county just does.
What about personal property? How does that play into this at all?
So you can have decrement on personal property as well. You want to be strategic about how you capture personal property, because real property, you have your base assessment date. So if you set up an allocation area today, your base assessment date would be 1/1/2023, pay 2024. And then every year we would go through and say, well, what kind of changes are there? Can we capture that as a redevelopment commission or not? It's called a neutralization. With personal property, we don't really do that, or we don't do that at all. Personal property is, we're going to designate, Myers or whomever as designated taxpayer. We look at whatever their net assessed value is for personal property at that moment in time, and that is your base forever, it never changes. And then anything on top of that would be what we would capture. Where we have to be careful with personal property, talking about decrement, personal property is subject to depreciation.
Yeah.
So year over year, it's gonna be going down and trending down in value until it reaches its property tax floor. The only exception I would say is if they're reinvesting in their personal property, they're always getting ahead of that depreciation, and you could have some positive value there. So it's important to be, be mindful when capturing personal property.
Thank you.
Yep.
So will that, Gary, be something that you guys will take on to do in the second or third quarter of this year, or?
For decrement?
Yeah.
It's a conversation we like to have around this time of year, definitely before certification, going into certification. You guys, are you interested in doing that or not? It's something you want to do. If you guys would like to do that, that's something we can get started on sooner than later. There's no penalty in, doing it right now.
Is there a threshold that makes sense, or,
You
so
know,
if you only have a few $100,000 worth of, a decrement in all of the parcels across an allocation area, is that material enough, or you just maybe wait until the following year and see as that gap gets wider?
Is the juice worth the squeeze, right?
Yeah.
I would say a few 100,000 probably. Basic rule of thumb, the math would be, if you took your total negative increment, which is 100,000, divided by 100 times your tax rate, which, presumably is
That's what you're losing?
around 3. That's what you're losing.
Yeah.
So I would say, roughly speaking, with financial and legal, it would be about 10 grand from financial charges to do that process. Is it worth it to do that? And if that cost benefit makes sense, then absolutely.
Okay.
In some cases, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars in new revenue that you
Yeah.
otherwise wouldn't be capturing.
Okay. Good to know.
Yep.
Any other questions about the presentation? Next item, approval of recommendation for Habitat for Humanity neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm happy to come to you finally with the bid report on the Habitat for Humanity housing neighborhood that the RDC committed to funding. I'm not happy to report that it's over budget, as we've had a number of projects recently, given the bidding and climate and so forth. But we would recommend, after further conversation with Reedy and others, in terms of dollars, to recommend the contract with Sedan Contracting for $232,450, with an ask for an additional $85,000 to be approved for the plan to complete that project. The budget was established over 4 or 5 years ago, and that number had been held in the budget line item. Obviously, things had changed drastically, so at this point, we have the dollars available to move forward with this project at the $232,450 contract.
We could put a cap on that, and then also I think would be prudent to, reconvene with Habitat and see where they are with regards to the fundraising that they need for the first couple of houses. Because what we're really trying to do with that subdivision is do about 10 years worth of housing in a matter of just 2 or 3 years. And that's why we wanted to make a substantial commitment toward the subdivision, but we also don't want to do the subdivision work and make that investment, and then it'd be several years before they're ready to do the housing. But I think I don't know if you've talked to Habitat lately, but
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're teeing Habitat up, or Habitat's teeing their resources up at the same time we are.
Yeah, their economic development agreement had a completion date of 2026 in there with the houses, which was basically 3.5 to 4 years. And at this point, they have not indicated that that's not their goal. Now, in terms of how much dollars they've got left to raise in that gap, I don't know, but we certainly can reconvene. They've had some changes in their leadership in the last quarter, and it's time to, have a different kind of conversation and understanding some things. But in the economic development agreement, they had made a commitment to have those completed. Those 6 houses, there's 9 total, 3 on Green Road. If you remember, they made some concessions there as well, to doing the driveways and approaches in concrete, which they did not do initially, and then build these 6 additional houses.
And we added this Habitat opportunity into our redevelopment plan probably about 3 years ago, and not surprised that where we're landing because costs have gone up everywhere. That to me still seems like a reasonable number for the subdivision work we're doing up there.
Do we need a motion for just the 85 then, since we had 150 in, or do you need,
I would like a motion for you to
235.
authorize Saddam Contracting at their bid amount and authorize the additional $85,000 for the construction of the plant. It can all be one motion.
Okay, so what's the ask?
The ask is that you award the bid to Saddam Contracting for $232,450, and that we reallocate $85,000 in the plan for that project.
Cause we've got, am I reading the financials right, we've got 146,527 right now.
Yeah. Yes, you are reading that correctly. That'll go up to
Two
232,450.
232,450.
Any questions, comments? Okay, so motion on the table to approve the contract to CDM.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Next item, approval of recommendation for Franks Drive intersection construction.
Yeah, I'd ask that we table that at this time till the next meeting.
Any other old business?
No other old business unless you do.
No.
New business, declaratory resolution for new allocation area.
Ye- Yeah, so this is a new allocation area that we had been discussing last year as a part of some new development opportunities in and around downtown to help capture that increment as a part of the investment that's going on in this area. The resolution 2023-1R, a resolution of the City of Madison Redevelopment Commission approving certain amendments to the declaratory resolution and economic development plan for the North Madison Economic Development Area, including the creation of a new allocation area and related matters. That resolution basically establishes the parcels in and around downtown based upon the map that was provided to pull them out of the allocation area in the North Madison Economic Development Plan and set up a new allocation area, much like we've done with some other areas in town. That allows for that area to capture that increment on its own, and then as we can discuss further, that gives us an extension on that, on those revenues coming in, versus leaving those as a part of the North Madison allocation area. We anticipate a number of projects in and around this area over the next year to 2 to 4 years that will create increment where we think it's worthy to do that. And you'll notice that basically the allocation that we currently will be taking out is roughly $10,000 out of our current yearly allocation to the North Madison. So the cost-benefit analysis is really strong to go ahead and create this allocation area, considering the improvements that we have going on in the district that we're pulling out, which is basically parcels on West Street down to St. Michael's and the Hintz Alley basically south to the river. And that, that includes a number of housing projects, the new hotel, the Chandler. It'll include, we hope, a grocery store here shortly. The Central Hotel's making a huge investment. The Cinnamon Tea Room just got purchased and we turned into housing. And so given those kinds of developments, it makes sense for us to do that as a part of future planning.
And I would just add that we're not sure what the future of TIF is, except that we know that it expires. And we know that every year there's new legislation that is trying to change TIF and erode the benefit that TIF has to communities. And it's the primary economic development tool for every city in the state. Just this year, there was another attempt at legislation that ended up not going forward to the Senate when they did the swap, or the crossover for legislation, that would have taken 20% of our revenues off the top and redistributed to them to other units of government in the county. And as we have worked really hard for a really long time to grow our revenues in the TIF district, that revenue increase would just essentially evaporated. And we've been really successful at leveraging our TIF revenues into the capital stack to bring in new investment that is making some really impactful changes all across the community. And so we just continue to lobby really hard for the value of TIF, but strategically for us here, we have to always be managing TIF for the future, knowing that, you know, we're getting to this tipping point where leveraging that revenue stream out of TIF is going to be difficult. That's one thing that we're trying to manage, and the other one is we know that the primary TIF allocation area, the North Madison allocation area, has an expiration date on it around 2035. So we need to be creating new allocation areas where that clock, that time frame hasn't begun yet, and we can start capturing increment, because the investments we're making all across the community is growing assessed values downtown too, where we're also seeing a lot of investment. But we've got to really be managing this. We have to just attack it on all fronts, both the policy side, at the state level, and then here doing whatever we can do that we are allowed to do to create these new allocation areas to preserve revenue for the future. And then the other one that we've been talking about too is leveraging the North Madison allocation area so that we don't miss that opportunity to bring those millions of dollars up front for new investment now, because you've seen our redevelopment plan. It's very ambitious. So there's lots of, working with Gary and Cole and our attorneys, there's just a lot of thought that has to go into managing this TIF district to extract the maximum value out of it, which is why we're talking now about a downtown allocation area that is carved out of the North Madison allocation area. On that topic, I will ask though, on the map, I'm just a little confused because the boundary, does it go to East Street or is it going to West Street?
This is west, and I believe this is, I'm sorry, East Street. I misstated. It's
Okay.
not St. Michael's.
Okay. It is
Sorry,
East- okay,
it is
all right,
East
no
Street.
problem.
Sorry
Okay,
about that.
No problem. Thanks.
Tony, can I get that resolution number again?
2023-1R. Sorry about that.
And Commissioner, the process here will be like it was when we created the Super ATV allocation area. It'll go through Plan Commission, Council, and come back to be ratified, if I described that correctly, Gary?
Yes.
Here at the Redevelopment Commission in a couple months.
We'll prepare a tax impact statement that will go out to all overlapping taxing units 10 days prior to your confirmatory resolution. There'll be a public hearing at that meeting as well. That's the final step. So we'll handle all that.
So I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2023-01R.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Next agenda item, city matters, mayor update.
Not a whole lot to add, Commission, just that a lot of our focus this first quarter has been project management, working with the projects that we've already received funding on, and there's quite a few all across town. I want to welcome Emily too, because she's already very involved in the project management with Tony. The legislative effort that I described, we're halfway through the 2023 legislative session, so far things are looking really good relative to what we wanted to accomplish state level policy wise on the TIF statutes. We submitted applications for Ready 1.5. We'll start learning about those in probably another month or so as those cycle their way through the Southern Indiana RDA and confirm if there will be additional Ready dollars that had previously been allocated that could be reallocated to other communities with projects ready to go like us, and we're ready. We submitted 2 more projects. There is a Ready 2.0 that is in the 2023 budget. It's a $500,000 excuse me. That will be very instrumental for economic development across the state, just like the first batch of Ready has been. And we couldn't be more pleased with just the robust nature of our economic development and the partnerships that we have that culminated yesterday at Board of Public Works signing 3 new subrecipient agreements for our partnership with the Ohio Theater for the Ohio Theater facade restoration, our partnership with Hanover College and Heritage Trails for the first phase of the new Hanover-Madison Connector Trail, and then our partnership with Historic Madison, Inc. on the Bicentennial Park improvements and HMI lot down on our riverfront. So we signed the grant sub-recipient agreements yesterday after approval by Board of Public Works, and then those are co-signed by the Redevelopment Authority, Southern Indiana Redevelopment Authority, and approved by IEDC. So we have already put that funding in place, but the good news about those grant fundings is we're leveraging dollars from investment that the Ohio Theater and a $2.1 million trails grant from Next Level Trails, and then also the donation of pretty valuable riverfront property from HMI. So those are 3 more projects that we'll break ground on here pretty soon while we continue to manage about a dozen other projects across the city. Probably about a dozen, isn't it?
Yeah, it's close to a dozen. The Ohio Theater, we hope to bid here in the late spring. Those plans and documents are done, so we hope that the construction will begin this summer, around the 4th of July, and conclude towards the end of the year. That would be the goal. The goal would be to have the marquee lit by maybe Christmas. So that's a project that we'll be bidding here again through the Board of Public Works process here, starting in April and May. The Hanover Connector Trail will take a bit longer. We hope to select consultants for design on that here yet in Q2, and then that project will probably not construct until the spring of 2025. And then the third project, the HMI lot, we hope to bid late summer, early fall, and begin work this fall and try to be concluded before regatta of next summer.
I want to say lastly, thank you guys for your support. Wouldn't have them without you. You've seen, the redevelopment plan in action and producing results. So thank you guys for your support.
Anything else to come before the commission? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We need to sign that resolution.
You need to sign the resolution, and